Welcome to another vintage fishing reel service and repair video. In this episode we have a heavy hauler. Save the heavy haulers. Shh. This is a Zebco 808, and this particular version of the 808 is cataloged between 1977 and 1980. So 77, 78, 79, and 80. And I got this one with a newer Zebco rod, the whole outfit for $5, which, you know, you're not going to pass that up, even if it is a little farm fresh and crusty and doesn't have the correct handle. And in case you have one of these and it doesn't quite look like this one, I want to show you what a pristine, probably close to new old stock one looks like. Okay. So that's what they should look like. Notice the difference in the color. In fact, I thought for a second that maybe this was a different cone or nose cone from one of the brown versions of the 808. But when I take off the cover and put it and look at that, you can see that it's the same color as the pristine one underneath there. So that's how much fading has gone on well, fading or whatever you want to call it, bleaching from exposure to the sun and elements. So these were spooled from the factory with 100 yards of 20-pound tests. So this is a bigger reel, one of the bigger reels that Zebco made, at least at the time. So let's go ahead and get started and ultimately see if we can get I don't have a correct handle for this, but I have another handle that might be really fun for it in terms of making it a user, sort of a power handle. So let's go ahead and get in. Oh, one other thing to notice is that it's missing the decal that goes around the nose cone there, which gives you basically your pound test and amount of yards. So 17-pound test, 140 yards, 20-pound test, 115 yards, 25-pound test, 75 yards, and so on and so forth. This was spooled with string. Even says string on the decal on the nose cone, and then of course there was a string sticker that came with it from the factory. So Zebco must have had a deal with string. There is a selective anti-reverse. Drag is here. So on. All right, so let's get digging into this one. This one is, as I said, farm fresh. Pretty crusty inside, lots of dirt. Go ahead and remove the spinner head if we can. What's going on here? Don't want to crack the housing. That thing's off in there. Let's see. Maybe I'll take that all out of there so that housing doesn't get in the way. Should put a pair of vice grips on there or something, but let's just see what happens here. What is going on? I think this is this handle's spinning around the shafts there. So I'm going to try my kind of giving away my what I'm going to do with it here in terms of this big power handle. at least for now. Well, I guess it's time for maybe some penetrating oil and heat. Okay, I've got a little WD-40 on there. Been soaking for a little bit. I don't think that's gonna do it right off the bat. Oh, by God. Didn't even have my little torch ready and everything, but all it needed was a little WD-40. So, take this back off, get that nasty handle out of the way. Get my good handle back off. And let's get this, I've got the drag turned all the way off. I'm just gonna pop this E-clip out and remove the spool. And first thing to do is get all that old nasty line off of there. Just like that. Put that in the parts tray. You can see that's pretty dirty in there. Oh, this one's interesting. It has kind of drag rings reminiscent of like a Johnson. All these little plastic drag rings in there. What have we got going on in here? The heck? Is that old fishing line? That's looks like it might be old fishing line that got all wound up in there. And the next question is is that supposed to come out of there? In other words, how do you get these drag rings out of there? Well, let's see what happens here first. I don't know how that otherwise that would fit in there, because they certainly had to stack them in there somehow. Well, let's take this side apart for now. So I'm going to push down this. So this is the brake ring here, which has rubber in that. It basically stops your line when the button is depressed. So to get that off, we're just going to pop these. What is that? Stuck in there? What's going on here? Okay, there it came. Pop those out of there, and then you've got these little caps to worry about. The concave side faces up. The flat side faces down towards the spring. So keep the cup side up. And then we can remove these springs, and then the brake ring itself. And a lot of times these rubber pieces start to come out, and you can take like some E6000 glue and glue them back into place if they're coming out. Well, you may have to end up taking off the E-clip here. And the cap for it. Let's see. Yeah, you've got to turn it so the flat side of that faces the gear to give you enough clearance to get that off of there. And then that and the spring will come off. And then you can push the axle shaft out altogether. This is part of your anti-reverse mechanism, so that your shaft comes up through the pinion gear and then up through this, and that little post sticks in there. So we can pull the pinion gear out. There's no broken teeth there. I've done one of these before. I did that pristine one I showed you, but it's been a while. But it seems like I remember you have to take off this spring and this in order to get the main gear out. So let's just see here. Okay, maybe not have to take off the stretch spring. I think you can just pull that out of its hole there. Okay, and then now I think, yes, we can pull out the main gear. Looks like that's on there pretty securely, so I'm going to leave that hang. Got all kinds of dirty grease in here that I'm going to scrape off. And the question is, certainly there had to be a way to get those on there. The question is, how? And I don't want to break it. So this top piece is in fact moving with the brass piece. But I don't know how it's secured. It's moving back and forth. I don't know if it's regular thread or reverse thread. This is what the movement of this thing, okay, in that slot. So you'd have to get that thing lined up in there. It's what pushes those rings out. So it's not like these are standard drag rings where they're sliding. It's just a matter of pushing them out against the inside of the spool. So I don't think I'm gonna monkey with trying to get this off of there and worry about getting those drag rings out of there. I think I'm gonna leave it as it is and start putting these parts into the parts tray for cleaning. And I'm going to take all these over to the sink and scrub them with, first WD-40 down in all the channels and journals and that kind of thing. And then Dawn dishwashing soap with a toothbrush and Q-tips or cotton swabs where appropriate. And I'll be back just like that. All right, let's get these parts spread out here. Let's start putting this back together. We'll start with the main gear, and we're going to want to grease the teeth on that. Just pack those good. I never really mentioned my real greases, I don't think, but I use grease that's Well, I started out using grease, of course, designed for fishing reels, and I was using the, what the heck was it called? I don't know. I got it at the Ozark Trail, I think. I got it at the Walmart. It's a nice clear grease. And then I started moving to the Super Lube, the synthetic stuff, which I think is just as good. Most people recommend that you buy a grease that's made for the purpose of fishing reels, but I have been using the Super Lube. And for the oil, again, I was using Ozark Trail, but lately I've been using synthetic clock oil, which is real high quality stuff made for clock gears and that kind of thing, and will work beautifully on fishing reels. But you shouldn't just use just any old oil. Ideally, oil made for clocks or specifically for fishing reels, and grease as well. So let's sneak that back in there. And then we have to line up. There's some wide slits and some narrow slits, and you want to get all the wide ones lined up like that, and then line those up over that hole into which this post goes. And you may have to adjust that out to loosen up the drag so that you can sneak that into that hole and get it lined up with all of those slots in there like that. So that post fits into that widest slot, and all those rings have to be lined up like that. And yeah, so that's all the way installed. And so when you turn this, when you add drag, that post in there's, when it's like this, the drag's all the way off. And when you turn this, it twists that post and it fattens. It splays out those rings. You see how it flattens like that? It's going to the flat side, and it splays out those rings and puts pressure on the inside of the spool, and that's how you get your drag. As you reduce the drag, that goes back to like this instead of like this, and they get narrow again, and your drag's completely off. I'm going to put some oil underneath that drag gear there. And I'm going to put some oil under these anti-reverse arms. Get those moving freely. And now we're ready to reinstall the axle shaft and pinion gear and all that. So we can oil the pinion gear, and we're going to put down we're going to oil our pinion gear shaft or axle shaft. Put down the pinion gear line up the D-shaped hole to the D-shaped shaft. And then we have to sneak on that actuator for the anti-reverse and get it into there like that. So this anti-reverse lever here, this piece here with the flange or post on it, that goes up underneath first like this, okay, and then you've got this shim washer that goes on top of there like that. So it's 3 pieces. Okay, then we had our spring, and then we had this thing, which we had to turn the flat side towards the main gear to get it to slink down in there. Then you have to press that down, I'm going to get the rounded side facing toward, you got to press that down, and then you got to get your E-clip ready to snap back into place. Like that, and then you can let that cap and the spring right up and meet it. Now we can, probably wouldn't have to because the teeth on the main gear would oil it anyway, or grease it anyway, but I'm going to grease the teeth on the pinion gear there, put a little bit of grease around the spring and shaft here, up in there, and that part should be good to go. Anti-reverse is working. Okay. I'm going to lightly grease the spindle around which the spool rides. There's your clicker right there, your drag clicker. Not making much of a clicking sound, is it? A little bit better. Let's see here. Where's my, there it is. I think we can put that in before we start messing with the spool. And so the first thing you want to put down is the springs. And then this bar here. Actually, you got to get these caps on first. Remember, the cup side faces up. Oops. That was lucky. You don't want to lose those. I'm just about ready to do it, shoot that thing again. And then get that on there like that, and then let it come up. And then do the other side. Press it down, bend that thing in till it clicks into place. Now we can go ahead and put our spool on. and lock it in place with the E-clip. And remember, I've got my drag all the way off so that that spool will just pop right on and right off real easy. If the drag were up, you'd have a real hard time getting that spool back on there. The one nice thing about these 808s, these early 808s, is well, it's not an early one, but it's one of the good metal foot ones, is they have 2 pickup pins, double pickup pins. So we're going to oil so that plenty of oil gets up underneath those. You can oil the pivot points, but you just want you want the underside of those to be lubricated. Just work those back and forth. The pins look to be in really good shape. I don't see any cuts or anything in there. I don't see, believe it or not, any cuts in the, there's a little one there, but nothing to write home about in the spinner head. So we don't have to torque this thing on so that you need a pipe wrench to get it off. You just snug it up. You know, I don't even have the handle on, and you just snug that thing up. Now we can take and put our rear cover back on. And our front cover. Again, you can see the difference in color. You know, you can see the pristine one. The inside of the cover is the same as the color of the outside of the pristine one. Then you turn that over and wow. You know, theoretically, because this is molded plastic, the color goes all the way through. You could probably sand this down and buff it and so on. I've buffed these. I've sanded out nicks. I've used steel wool, and then I've used various rubbing compounds and machine polishes and get these shiny. You can comb your hair in the reflection, but I don't think I'm going to do that to this. This is going to be a nice user that you don't have to worry about dinging up and scratching and that kind of thing. Okay, and so I could sand all these out and really shine this up nice, but I'm not going to. In fact, I'm gonna, because this one had a missing handle and nut and all that, I'm gonna put on this great big, this is a bait casting handle. A really nice one, rubber knobs on it and this and that. And that's going to be a nice little power handle for that thing. Make sure those pickup pins are tripping. Yep. Everything's working there. I'm sure the drag's working. So I got that old nasty, I don't know what this looks like. It came off of something really old. But throw that out. Now, obviously, I can't find a replacement decal for what's missing from this cap. But the next best thing I could do is take some black pinstripe. Obviously, it won't have the writing and stuff on it that the original decal had. But it will look more or less similar to the original. So I'm going to start at the drain hole, and this stuff's pretty old, so hopefully it sticks. I had this for probably some automotive project. And I'm just going to pull off that backing as I go, kind of keep sticking it on as I go here. And you don't want to stretch it either, because then it'll start, when it later contracts, it'll start coming off. I just overshot the drain hole just a tad there, so I'm going to pull that up and knock off just a little bit, and there you go. I just got a little bit of funk on that, but at any rate, that makes it look a little bit more like the original without the writing, but more or less the same. And there you have a farm fresh, well used 808 of Zebco from 1977 to 80, next to a pristine one with the correct handle. But this is going to be a great little user, and I'm looking forward to doing some catfishing with that. So I think I might change my channel name. When I first started the channel, of course, I've got a number of different hobbies, from restore and farm all tractors and aquariums and model Lionel trains and this and that. And I thought I might have a lot of that in the channel, but I think most people subscribe to this channel because they're interested in vintage fishing stuff. And so I think that's what the channel is going to be mostly about. I might slink something else in there, but I'm going to get a name on it that better matches the content. The fishing thing was kind of goofy anyway, just something I came up with on the spur of the moment. So you can look out for that, but nothing else will change. So hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching.